Bulbul is saying, how does Imran Khan figure into this narrative? Everyone thought he was a liberal, but his stance on France and his inability to protect minorities don't give me much hope. How would you answer that?
Imran Khan appeals to a broad base, and you can't do that in Pakistan without signaling to these elements. And he does so, but it's a mixed bag of things he does. I don't agree with people who call him a supporter of these groups, because that's exaggeration. But he does politically pander to them. And is not very different from the two other mainstream political parties in power, because anything you heard from them was just rhetoric, and they politically pandered to them as well.
Bulbul is also asking, Shaan, your brother Atish, Atish means fire, wrote in his book about his half-brother who used to say, I effing hate Hindus, man. Was he talking about you? Is that the general rhetoric in Pakistan?
I can't. If that's directed towards me, no, I haven't said that. Is that the general rhetoric? Yes, many people say that. Many people. That's not the general rhetoric. There are elements who say that. There are elements who say that on the other side of the border. But I don't think that should be like a come away from Pakistan. But no, I don't effing hate Hindus. That's not true. I've risked my skin to stand up for them.
Exactly.
Blonde Infidel is asking, what if you have measures of success developed by local activists? So like KPIs by organizations that were built like locally?
Oh, well, I'm sure you do. You can't. Yes, you do. But the reason I mentioned KPI is that a KPI is something that comes from a corporate world, where you can measure successes down to a simple number. What sales did you meet? What your your employee turnover was. In social movements, it's difficult to boil it down to simple numbers like that.
Right. Blonde Infidel is also asking, do you see a role for the Pakistani diaspora?
Oh yeah, a huge role. A huge role. I mean, more than just sort of people. Pakistani, the diaspora is connected to Pakistan. They spend a lot of money. They send a lot of money back to Pakistan by way of remittances. They have a huge amount of political clout. All mainstream parties come to them, especially Imran Khan, to raise money for his political movements. These people have a lot of power if they were to use it sensibly.
But when we talk about the diaspora, we're also including the activists like Harris Sultan types or Ali Rizvi, and like that's also, it's not just money and political influence; it's also activism, right?
Of course, of course. I mean, they have a footprint in the pop culture and can use that responsibly.
Right. Shout out to Harris Sultan. Last question before I ask the last question, I just want to mention that the questions just came from our patrons. So thank you to our patrons. If you're not a patron, consider becoming one. So in the future live streams, you could be here live with us and ask these questions. Blonde Infidel is asking the question, is saying, there's always going to be conspiracy theories. How do you try and deal with that?
Oh, you don't deal with them. There'll always be conspiracy theories. I mean, Khadim Rizvi's died. People, are accusing all elements of either having murdered him. We don't know if it's corona. Conspiracies are a part of life. I mean, we'll never. I mean, it's impossible to know whether you're in a conspiracy theory or not. So we can't deal with it. It'll be there.
We can reduce them by promoting critical thinking skills.
Oh yeah, that we can. That sure, yeah. But so basically we'll get the right conspiracy theories out. Get the wrong conspiracy theories back. So
the problem a lot of times with this, because we talk about critical thinking and promoting the scientific method and critical thinking, the problem is who's doing it. If it's being done by the people in authority, then people end up mistrusting that as well. Like they literally, Armin, in Pakistan, they look at this, they're talking about freedom of speech and democratic values, science, critical thinking. It's because the elites are saying this, we can't trust it. They think of that as some sort of like indoctrination. So it's a very difficult issue.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Logical fallacies. Do we have people teaching logical fallacies is a conspiracy by the government? That hasn't become a thing yet. Teach that. I don't know.
Yeah, they're mobbing. students in Peshawar University to death for asking questions about Adam and Eve. So long way to go before we start teaching critical thinking.